This is an article from Vol1 after Dr. K.C.V's works. And the title of the article is Sri Ramchandra's Interesting Investigations on the Phsio-Psychology of the Human Organism. Sri Ramchandraji of Shahjahanpur has made startling investigations in yoga psychology. These are found in his Reality at Dawn, Efficacy of Raj Yoga, and Towards Infinity. He reveals that all creation is of the mind, which is the first stir of the reality. This primal manas radiating in vibrations from that center of reality created concentric circles, so to speak, and up to a point revealed the potentialities of the center itself. This luminous region, up to the extent of 7 original circles, was known as the central region of the mind. This area is not open to the area of knowledge and therefore was known as the Ajnana, or the region of ignorance, where knowledge does not penetrate and which can only be investigated with the help of Ajnana and the ultimate thumb itself. That is beyond the original stir and may be known as God. Okay? Clear enough? Any problem?
Yes. Yeah.
The regions that follow are the region of egoism, firstly cosmic and later individualized for each person. The same pattern is in the cosmic as in the individual or particular individuals or persons. The manas, now diminished in its force, remains subtle but tends to become grosser and grosser. 11 circles of egoism are known as the region of the mind, and this is followed by the grosser region of the heart. The human organism, as a matter of fact, from almost the head to the feet, is the region of the heart in the gross level as well as in the subtle level. The heart becomes the essential region governed by the circulation, by the heart processes. Physically, everybody knows that the heart is central to the body. Though today there are cases of transplantation of the heart, yet it would not disprove the thesis that heart remains the main pumping station of power to all the portions or limbs of the body, including the brain. Whilst the nervous system is centered in the brain, and the nervous system, including the spinal ones, the heart is the circulatory hub of all processes. Towards the harmonization of the two centers alone is evolution working. This conception of the three regions, the heart, the mind, and the central region, is unique. He, however, merely identifies the three regions with the Indian conception of Pinda, Brahmanda, and Parabrahmanda, and the Kendriya or central regions, which means that he considers that while the heart is individual, the manas is more cosmic, and Parabrahmanda is still more cosmic, and the central region goes to the supracosmic or acosmic levels of experience. Every individual is connected with the ultimate and subaltimate regions physio-psychologically. Okay, anything, any queries for that so far? It's all quite technical anyway. The stir for expansion is stated to have taken place from below the center. This is significant as showing that creation is a downward movement rather than an upward movement. Sri Ramchandra has mentioned that there are what are called Kala Dasa points, points that belong to time, which emerges along with the movement in space that is below the center. They all stand under the center. This is also the significant metaphor of the Veda, which speaks of the Urdhva Moolam Adhashakha. The root is above, the branches, etc. are below. So too the Gita mentions this analogy. Kaladasa points are placed along the spinal cord of the individual body. They are below the central point, which is in the region of the cerebellum. Sri Ramchandra points out that there is also the point of destruction just below the center. But by crossing down, or by implication discovering that the creative downward movement is really a process of destruction of the ultimate happiness, perfection, existence, and so on, one may conceive the downflow of evolution, pravritti. Thus, we have the points numbering 20. From Layavastha, one descends to the conversion of vibrations into particles, the higher mind's conversion into the lower. Though up to this point, divine knowledge is present, the downward movement takes it to subtle desires, kama, which moves to the point of rage, krodha, which tends to flow down to habits and tendencies, lobha and moha. This moves towards hunger and grosser desires pertaining to the maintenance of the body, and lower, though, for the perpetuation, preservation, sexual appetites, and finally ends up in kundalini. Thus, desire, anger, possession, self-preservation, delusion, and sex are all clearly necessary for the extension of the field of the individual evolution. All individuals are the basic results of the downward movement of the Arisat, or the sixfold, which may be said to typify also the sixfold chakras of the tantric conception. The centers too are considered to be downward facing, or hanging down birds, which it is the business of the yogi on this path to upturn or make them unfold upwards by piercing them from below with the help of the energy of the kundalini. It is somewhat of a strange conception that the grossest power should be awakened and made to pierce the points or centers of lotuses from below, and then move upwards till the ultimate center is reached. Sri Ramchandra presents a more rational explanation of this spinal downward turn points, which represent the life forces of instinctive evolution, which is also considered to be that of nature. It may not be very difficult to equate the 6 centers with points of Sri Ramchandra's diagram. These two are subtle centers, except perhaps the last one, a fact recognized by the minor Upanishads also. Unlike the method adopted by the Tantrics, who wish to move by the same route as by which the original force has descended, an impossible, if not risky job, Sri Ramchandra proceeds to show that the route of ascent is different from the spinal route of descent. This route is frontal rather than spinal and posterior. The starting point is the heart, as stated by the Upanishads, where the jiva is resident and where the Ishvara is also working. Without entering into the metaphysics of the double presence of the jiva and Ishvara in the heart, we can state that one has to move upward from the heart to the center that is above. The path is not direct, but rather zigzag. From the point of heart, left, one proceeds to the right, and from that one ascends to the point 3 just above the nipple, left, and proceeds from thence to the point 4, which is upwards of the right nipple. From that point, one proceeds to the throat point, which corresponds to the Vishuddha point in the spinal in the front. This completes the frontal ascent of the Pinda Pradesh, or the individual evolution or ascent. It is from the thoracic point one moves to the point in the top of the forehead, not the Bhrumadhya, which is said to be the point corresponding to the Agnya Chakra in the spinal level. It is the experience of many practicants at this point to have vibrations or throbbing. Sri Ramchandra advises this point should not be touched at all on the upward journey. Maybe that this point corresponds to the destructive eye or point in the back and might open up that point's activity. However, many use this for material power. Some even present it as the third eye of Shiva. However, this point is bypassed on the ascent. One reaches the Chit lake at the top of the forehead. One begins to experience the mind region as it opens up the cosmic levels, leaving behind the individual particularized ego, particularized life. Ego at this region is no longer identified with the body or the sense-motor organs, but is free from their limitations and restrictions.
Sir, just one thing to understand. So first he explains how the downgradation happened, right? And that he's saying through the spinal cord towards the Kundalini from the backside.
Yeah.
And then now he's explaining from the front side how our path is starting
This
from
front side was not described anywhere, no? Everywhere they only described the Kundalini and the Shat chakras only. So this is Babuji's discovery. That's what this article is talking about.
Okay. And the other thing, just in the last paragraph, it says that Agnya Chakra should not be touched. So does that mean that from the fifth directly go to the eighth knot? Is that...
No, where is it written?
No, so here, right, it says it is from the thoracic point, one moves to the point in the top of the forehead, not the Bhrumadhya, which is said to be point corresponding to the Agnya Chakra in the spinal level. It is experience of many participants at this point to have vibrations or throbbing. Sri Ramchandra advises that this point should not be touched at all on the upward journey. Maybe that this point corresponds to the destructive eye or point in the back and might open up that point's activity. However, many use this for material power, and here it says, however, this point is bypassed on the ascent and one reaches the Chitlek at the top of the forehead.
That is true. Sir also told, no? Even Babuji had, gave a criticism why you should not meditate on Bhrumadhya. Because he says it is a power center which distributes power to the whole organism. It goes to the heart. From there, it supplies the lower centers also. So it is quickly bypassed. That's what Sir told me. That's why most people, they immediately bypass and go to the seventh knot. Not much is described there.
Okay.
Waking consciousness, according to Mandukya Upanishad, refers to the sensory motor mind awareness. But the true waking consciousness seeks to be beyond these restrictions of limitations or grossness. The real awareness of the cosmic linkings of the mind or ego as mind becomes possible when one dwells more and more in the Chit lake, Manasarovar of the Upanishads. The modern tendency to emphasize the place of the waking consciousness arises from the fact that one would like to be held responsible for one's actions, especially the errors and sins that so much dominate it. The waking consciousness involves that one must be conscious of one's powers and be able to plan the future according to whatever ideals that one has. In fact, it is the practice of some to see that the subconscious and unconscious levels of consciousness are gradually abolished. The Yoga Sutra itself admits that Nidra or sleep is a great impediment to yoga. More so, dreams also that set the mind wandering from one idea to another idea. Obviously, we have to conclude that yogi never ought to sleep or dream, but be in the waking consciousness. In all these, what is the essence of the matter is that one forgets the inner self, the fourth. Our waking consciousness suffers much from this loss of inner consciousness, the turiya. Therefore, it is not really jagrat, watchful, but pleasure. Hunting, not really jagrat, but watchful, but pleasure hunting. Its world is narrowed to the field of desires which fulfill the appetites of the senses, motor and sensory. Similarly, the swapna, su apna, is equally void of the inner awakeness of the self, the, and as such is nightmarish and wish fulfilling, rather than free and luminous, tejas. The Sushushupti without the fourth or the is again not a sound sleep of the prajna, but just a fatigue consciousness or a state of aprajna. It is the fourth that must inform all these three states, all of which are necessary for the real upbringing of the body as an instrument of the inner self. If the philosophy behind these discoveries was the attainment of the turiya or the fourth, which is of the disembodied being, then it is conceivable that some have never bothered to exercise the fourth in the three states of the body. If, on the other hand, the goal is to see that the fourth functions in and through the three states, then it would really manifest the Vishwa, Tejas, and Prajna. This might be the essential meaning of the attempt to arrive at that waking consciousness, which is all the richness and amplitude of the cosmic and supracosmic levels of reality. Vishwa is the Pinda Desh, Tejas is Brahmanda, Prajna is, I think, superconscious state. They equate with Mahat, Ahankar, and Manas and all that. It is, however, necessary to plumb the depths or ascend the heights of the reality as it is in itself, so that it might be made to function with that same force and energy and consciousness in the lower levels without dissolving them into nothingness. A fact well known to the earlier yogis, you attempted nishprapanchikarana, dissolution of the fivefold unification or aggregation that gave rise to the world. This again is a Buddhist concept, nishprapanchikarana. That means you don't fabricate mental worlds. You just live in the body, live in the feeling level without thinking too much. Aggregates are again the Buddhist concept again. The Bhagavad Gita has a passage which reveals that the night of the yogi is daytime for the common man, and the waking state of the yogi is the sleepy state of the ordinary man. This gives the clue that one has to understand by the waking state, not the state of the senses, motor and sensory, and the lower mind operating through them, but the state of the inner self, the Purusha. The Purushaic consciousness or the Di is the waking state of the Purusha, whereas it is the state of sleep of the Prakriti, contrary-wise. The waking state of Prakriti is the sleep state of the Purusha, the Prajna. Prajna means the wisdom. When the wisdom arises that everything is unity, everything is God. So there is no difference between animate, inanimate, yourself, I and mine will be gone and you will see God everywhere. That wisdom is called Prajna. All these reveal that technical terminology has been rather loosely applied by expositors without a firm grasp of the experience that is bordered by the states and levels. Therefore, Sri Ramchandraji supplies a firm interpretation of the Prakritic evolution on the one hand, as explained by the Kaladasa points, and the Purushaic evolution, which is explained as the frontal heart cerebral movement of the consciousness. Samadhi as the transcendental meditation is a double-edged experience. On one hand, Samadhi provides a break away from the Prakritic embodied consciousness into the Purushik that involves suspension of all bodily activities. This Samadhi has been known to be reserved for those who have totally discarded attraction for the body and given up any attempt to use it for any purposes. Of course, the actual practice has been rather opposed to this total renunciation. Therefore, Samadhi as the radical withdrawal of the consciousness from the body is not fully accepted as the way to realization, though a few yet cling to it as the only truth. Samadhi as the state of the Purusha consciousness, really realizing itself within the Prakriti, which is, as it were, but it's kshobh and externalized, is what the Sahaja method seeks to attain. This does not mean the severance of the link between the Purusha and Prakriti, which are usually set against each other. The realization of the highest consciousness, the Purusha within the Prakriti or the body, is naturally brought about by the transmission of the ultimate thought arising from the ultimate Purusha or self or God. Samadhi is not a state of trance, loss of bodily consciousness as such. It is the deepest state of absorption in the ultimate, from which one derives all power and consciousness and bliss and existence, for then one goes beyond all these two. The correlations made by Sri Ramchandra are invaluable and form a corrective to the speculative conjectures of the Tantrikas and the Mantrikas. It has to be meditated to understand more. But in the traditional books, nobody talks about the frontal region, the chakras in the front. Babuji says, Dr. Vardhaji says, Babuji says somewhere in some literature, in Sufi literature, they have mentioned about the point of Ruh, that means the Atman point on the right side of the chest. But very little is there in the literature about these things. Nowhere in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras it is mentioned about these chakras at all, neither on the back side or on the front. Only the tantric people, they talk about Shat Chakra Sadhana.
Just here, right? Samadhi is saying that it is a consciousness really realizing itself within Prakriti. So on one side, we consider Samadhi as an absorption, right? We get absorbed during the meditation.
Absorption of various levels, no? Now we are talking about we can be absorbed in not one, absorbed in Viveka and Vairagya, absorbed in Sat Swarupa Jnana, absorbed in devotion, absorbed in surrender, absorbed in balance. So our language is like this. And once you move in the Parabrahmanda region, and then that balance, when it becomes refined and refined, then you are absorbed in, then it's called Brahmalaya. You are absorbed in God totally. And Babuji's system talks about Sahaja Samadhi. It doesn't talk about Asampragnata Samadhi, which is a trance where you're not aware of your body, not aware of God, not aware of yourself also. So he talks about the divine consciousness or the prajna, fourth state itself, Turiya state, operating in your body. In the world, you will be operating with that force. It percolates even into your matter also. That's why if you have a guru of that caliber where he is merged in God, even if you meditate on the physical form of such guru, the person will benefit. Ideally, we are supposed to meditate on the divine essence which the guru represents. But in a very advanced yogis like Babuji and Lalaji, even if you meditate on the physical form, because every particle of the physical form is percolated by that pure kshobh itself, the nature of the kshobh which is there, that is manifesting itself in 100% in such gurus like Babuji and Lalaji, then even if you meditate there, you will still benefit. But normally when you're meditating, you should meditate on the spiritual essence of the Guru actually. That is what is meant by the Patanjali Sutras 39, which Babuji keeps on quoting. Vitaraga Vishayam Vachitam. You can meditate on the mind of the Guru, mind which is balanced, mind which has got compassion. In the recent article which you have published in Vasant Sanchika, Motivation, Sir alludes to this meditation on the Master. He talks that if you meditate on the Babuji is compassion personified, and if you want to develop compassion, you can think about him. But otherwise, we are meditating on divine light without luminosity, which comes to as near possibility as the absolute reality. There is no such thing called good or bad or liberation or bondage. All those things are words in an ignorant person's mind. But once you move there, you become dumb. You cannot talk anything about it.
The main difference in terms of the Sahaj Samadhi is that there is an awareness, but internally it is connected with the highest consciousness.
You are absorbed in God and you will see God everywhere. You become truly like a servant like Babuji felt he was a servant. So whoever he met, his orientation was how to help him enjoy real happiness, how to awaken the divinity in that person. Unless divinity is awakened, no person can be truly happy. So there is no such thing called, he has gone beyond awareness. He naturally, spontaneously lives godly life.
Okay.
No more the conscious way of thinking which our mind thinks. That becomes very silent internally also. So you just live a spontaneous life. He's absorbed in God, but he's not aware that he's absorbed in God. It just happens, that's all. He gives a clear example, no? He talks about when a person is sleeping, when a mosquito bites him, you just sweat on the mosquito. When you wake up, you are not even aware that mosquito is bitten and that you have done an action of sweating that mosquito. That is Sahaja Samadhi. You are in a absorbed state, in a waking state. It is like that.
Okay.
Which we saw in Babuji, most people who have met him, they were, their mind was not able to comprehend him. They were just in his presence, they used to become blank and peaceful and happy. And they felt, unquestioned love from his side towards you. Whoever you may be good, bad, sincere practitioner, poor practitioner. I mean, you're a cruel fellow, evil fellow, it doesn't make any difference. Unconditionally used to love you.
Anyone else wants to ask anything?
Okay, then we'll meet next Sunday then.